So back live this Wednesday after the High Roller Horse Show. I'm sure some of you saw, we were out there for like 10 days. It was forever, marathon. But finished up really good at the end. Showed my horse Tough. Trashy Chicks Dig Me is his registered name. And he was great. Here he is over here. I'll let you see him. So he just got shampooed or something. Oh no, he's not wet. Yeah, he is wet. But Tough here, he's getting a few days off. He was outstanding in the Open Derby there. He got second in the 4-year-old stakes with the 221. What was so good about it, I mean, that's great that, he did well at the show and everything, but what I'm so happy about is how he's come back physically. This horse is a 3-year-old. He was real talented, but he just never was right. Just never looked right. Oops, sorry, dude. Physically, just never looked right. Like he couldn't. It wasn't really like he was lame, but he had something going on. And it turns out we find out at the futurity he had a pitheosis infection. It's in his it's upper respiratory deals that he had going on. But long story short, he's all healed up now, and this horse he's so amazing. He showed in the rookie both days at the High Roller. So like 5 days before I showed him in the Open, he showed in the rookie. So I would bet he's probably that showed in the rookie 2 days and then came back and showed in the Open. And he was just so much fun. He listened to everything I asked him to do out there. I mean, of course, there's little things that you wish you could have back. But overall, the horse was just so good, which we spend so much time out here with them. It's so rewarding when they go out and they try so hard. Later on here in a minute, I'm going to get on and I'm going to get on Lucy and I'm going to work on stepping your spin up. I think somebody asked if your horse is a little lazy, wasn't it, Karen? Like, what do you do to get that stepped up? And I'll jump on and show you. But I also want to show you, just bragging a little bit on those Derby horses from Vegas. Here's Funky, aka Wimpy Slidewanger. And this one here, if you remember, we worked him in the round pen quite a bit. Really a good horse. He's coming over to say hi. Really a good horse. But if you remember at the Derby, I told you, NRHA Derby, froze up in a rollback, and I was just trying to figure out why and see if there's anything different I can do. And so we worked him in the round pen. He didn't want to face up at all. And we went to Vegas, and he is terrible at it. And he's still not perfect at it. But I spent a lot of time working, and I think, two things. I think that, first off, I wasn't running and stopping or spinning. No, you're right. Go ahead, Mark. I wasn't running, stopping, and spinning, which that's definitely not going to hurt. It's easier on his legs. But then also, I think I was just working on his mental focus. And he showed great on Saturday too. He was a 219.5. He didn't spin quite as good as I'd like. He tried hard. There really wasn't anything you could say about it other than you probably just need to do it again. But the rollbacks were awesome, which that's what I was when I was showing. I was thinking, man, this is fun, because I was really working on that. We talked about it before. I was doing that rollback drill that. I've got on my website that I'm sure some of you have seen. I mean, I'm actually doing it. It's not like I'm just telling you to do it and then I don't do it myself. I mean, I'm working on it. But I really think that little bit in the round pen made a difference. Because when you got a nice horse like this, it's little small things that make a difference. I mean, what am I going to do? Like, try to completely retrain the horse? No, I mean, I can work on his focus a little. Later on, if you guys go to my YouTube channel, I'm going to post those runs. And I'm going to critique myself. I'm going to go through and we'll talk about what I thought looked good, what I thought I could do different, and what I might do training-wise going forward to try to make sure that I'm getting the most out of this horse. Hey, Beto. Then the other horse I showed is Old Smokey, which you guys definitely got to remember him. That's the old gray. Smokey's 6. I wasn't planning on showing him at the Derby there, but he's 6 years old, and I was talking to Mary Beth, the owner, and we were like, he's such a good horse. Why not go out there and show him? It's only a couple. Mr. Friendly, he's obviously okay with me, even after showing. But anyway, we thought, why not? We're going to be there. Let's have some fun and see what happens. And he showed in the rookie and did really well with Mary Beth. She had a you know, I thought she made some progress with her showing, and then I came back and marked an 18.5, 72 to 73.5 on the scorecards. I like the 73.5, of course, but showed great, which for me, you know, I'm just proud of the fact that those horses are able to go up and down, show in the non-pro, rookie, show in the open, and they're still fresh, you know, in other words, like they're not burned out, they're still okay with their job. So that just tells me, I think, that that what we're doing is working at the moment. So, you know, and I say that because you're always trying to, you know, sometimes stuff doesn't work, so you're always kind of trying to analyze where you're at and decide, you know, do I need to change something, or what we're doing, is it okay?
Wow, we've got somebody watching from Thailand.
Nice. Sold a horse in Thailand one time. I'd like to get over there sometime.
Oh yeah, Katie, huh?
Yeah, that mare Katie. So here's Lucy. Here's who we're going to use. This is my mom's horse that she bred and raised. Actually, it's kind of my mom and Karen's horse now, because Karen's going to be showing it to 30. And I've got to ride her anyway. And its turnaround is something that I'd say is probably not her strongest thing. She tries really, really hard, but it's just not the easiest thing for her. I mean, it's just like, you know, a lot of things that I try to do that, you know, I'm not the best at it, but it doesn't mean I won't try to continue to get better. Grab the bridle. Grab the old trusty correctional here. Go without a cavesson today. So, you know, some days, now I'm doing what I told Mary Beth not to here. I took the halter off and turned the horse completely loose, but I'm pretty trustworthy that she is not going to run off.
Now, why do you use a cavesson sometimes and sometimes not? Like, why are you choosing not to use one today?
Yeah, so for me, I like to try to practice a lot the same as if I was going to show, you know, so I don't get to use a cavesson when I show, so I don't like to use it all the time. And then also it gives me more of a realistic feel of what the horse is going to be like when I show. Mm-hmm. And then also, I think when you're teaching young horses in particular, I think it's okay if they open their mouth sometimes. You know, I think when they're trying to get things figured out, and you're pulling on them, and maybe you pull too fast or too hard, or they're just trying to figure it out, and they want to open their mouth a little, I think that's okay. I don't, you know, I'm just thinking about myself, how restricted I'd want to be when I'm learning something new, and I probably wouldn't want to be very restricted. So, you know, with that being said, I think sometimes what happens, you get into something where you know, you're softening or suppling your horse, and your horse is resisting, and you think it's, oh, they're fighting my hands, they're fighting the bridle. Well, sometimes it might just be that they want to open their mouth and they're mad about it. So I try to pay attention to that, you know, and that's why I'll take that cavesson off every now and then. Let's see what they do, because I think if a horse is truly willing, they're not going to open their mouth with the cavesson off, right? That's the, you know, that's ideally where you'd want to be at. And then with that being said, when I put a cavesson on, I'm going to leave it a little looser just so they have a little bit of play. And it depends on the horse, right? If the horse is trying to be agreeable, you know, again, it's like raising kids. It's a whole different set of rules. I'm not saying if I think a horse really understands what I'm asking, and I've been patient and slow and methodical, and they're still not getting it, will there ever come a point where I'll draw a line in the sand and say, you're doing this right now because I say so? Absolutely. But then as soon as I get that point across, I want to go back into my teaching mode, right? Because, again, ultimately, when I go compete in reining, this is all I get to use. I don't get to use any more gimmicks or training aids than that.
We've got some people watching from Brazil.
Brazil! There's another place I haven't been. Brazilians are trying to take our sport over. So if you've been on my YouTube channel also, you've seen, I've got a video on there for how to teach your horse how to spin, which has got like a ton of views. I've had it on there a while. It's pretty simple, but it really, I think the spin's pretty simple. I think for the most part, if a horse has the ability to do it, It's just kind of show them where to be and get out of the way. I think we can complicate things a lot, and we're always trying to make this foot step here and that horse step here. And I got to tell you, over the years, I think maybe you can change that spin a little bit, but I think you're wasting a lot of time. I think either a horse can spin or it can't. You know, it can spin really well or it can't. I think back, you know, how many horses have I had that were really good turners? And you know, you think about it and you go, you know, first off, I don't know how many you think. I don't think I've had quite a few, probably, huh?
Oh yeah.
That could spin well. And I can't think of like there was one particular thing that I did that took them from being good to great. Now the only thing I think I could try to do is make sure that my cues are solid and that they understand where they want to go, and just try to guide them. But as far as like I said, like manipulating everything that he does to make him spin better, I don't know if I buy into that completely.
So what you're saying is like there's, because what Debbie was kind of asking when she was saying, I think that she apparently has a horse that is what she feels, because she said she really benefited from watching Smokey with you trying to step him up and not be so lazy in the round pen. And so she said that helped her a ton. She did that work in the round pen with her horse, and she said it was an improvement. But she said the horse does just tend to be a lazy horse that needs to be pushed all the time. And so I think that what she's getting at is she feels that the horse has more turn, but he's so lazy she doesn't know how to get it out of him.
Okay, so then really that's really more back to just being flat out lazy, which everything's always connected. And if she thinks the horse has more spin, you know, more snap, and she's not getting it, it's probably not the spin itself, right? It's just the lack of motivation.
Right, I think that's what she was getting at, is like how can she get her horse to move his feet?
So here's what I would do first. Anytime I have an issue with something, is I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna check my foundation first. Make sure, you know, does the horse really understand what it is that I'm asking before I start asking for speed? Because if you start asking for speed and the horse is confused about where he's supposed to go, two things are going to happen. You're going to be having a really ugly spin fast, or that horse is going to start acting out because he doesn't know where he's supposed to be. He's going to get frustrated, nervous, mad, all of those things, and then you'll have a real problem on your hands.
And then when you are trying to teach them, somebody is asking, does it matter what type of a bit you're using?
I don't think that it really matters. It matters what kind of hands you have. If you're at all concerned, drop down in severity of bridle. Okay, so that's always something everybody asks. I had somebody the other day, you know, they were commenting on the horse's head position. Like, you know, some horses are natural, some naturally carry them low, some not. I think you can tell, you can use common sense and see when how a rider's riding, what's their hands like. Because to me, as a professional, I think it's better for this horse if I find a kind of a middle of the road bridle that she understands but she respects enough that I can give. It's all about the release. The sooner I can release, the better. So for me, I feel like I can use a little more bridle because my hands are pretty slow from lots of experience, and I can get that yes like that from her and get quicker to a release. Now in a snaffle, you could accomplish the same thing, but if you have a heavy or a lazy horse like what we're talking about today, you're going to have to pull pretty hard and use your legs a lot. You're going to have to ask a lot more times to get the same response as if I use a little bit more bridle. Now, with that being said, it's easy to abuse more bridle, and you start taking advantage of it. So long story short, less bridle is never going to be bad, ever.
So somebody is asking, is there a natural way that each individual horse spins? If so, how do you figure that out?
Well, I think they all have a little bit of their own style in the end, but I think there's certain things they have to do. You want them to pivot on their hind foot, you know, preferably pivot a hole in the ground, but about a 3-foot square box is acceptable because not every horse can sit and drill a hole in the ground. They're all going to move a little different. You jog a little different, I jog a little different, but one thing that is they all need to have, once they start moving those shoulders, they should move them freely. Now, how they move them, you know, that's where you get into the training part of trying to see if you can help the horse figure out where it is, where's optimal, where can you get the optimal performance out of them. And I think it's a give and take where you say, hey, you know what, I think that if you turn in this frame like this, that's going to be best. And then the horse is going to show you by his you know, by his response to your training. If that horse is like, you know, they take off and they start picking it up and they go, you know, the horse is, and I'm always kind of having a conversation with my horse, you know. They haven't talked back yet, but I'm sitting there going, you know, is that okay? Are you figuring that out? And then that horse will tell you, nah, you know what, I really like to have my left foot out there, or I like to have my head to the outside. I know you don't like it, but I turn best that way. And so you got to be willing to compromise a little bit and go, okay.
Because they're like an athlete. I mean, just, you know, like, honestly, you know, you're not going to play football like, you know, it's about each individual horse is going to have.
They do it different, right?
Right.
Yeah,
so
they do it different.
What do you look for when you are going out to purchase a horse? What are you looking for as far as like in their spin with their capability? Because you need a horse really at your level that can turn +1, +1.5.
Well, absolutely. So the two things you got to have a horse that's what we call fast-footed, meaning their feet get out of the ground quick, like really fast. Boom, 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 boom. And then you want a horse that's willing always. Willing, number one, because if you got fast-footed but the horse has no desire to do what you want, then you know you're going to set yourself up. You're going to be disappointed a lot, you know, a whole lot. You're going to be all dressed up for the prom, ready to go, and then you're going to have nobody to go with. So you know you want to have a willing horse, and then you want to have a horse that's fast-footed, and you can't train that into the horse.
Do you feel like that's a confirmation thing, or what?
I wish I could say.
Or is there really an answer to that question?
If somebody had that answer, man, it'd be easy. Because I've seen horses with so many different conformations that are able to do the job. You know, I think willing is such a big thing. I mean, for sure, you got to have an athlete. You know, you got to have a horse that's a little more, or you know, that's built to be an athlete. Which most of these reining horses, cow horse, they're all built about the same, and they're pretty athletic. Some more than others. You know, you could say a horse that's really low in the withers can't spin, but I could show you one in the barn that turns +1. So you know, I don't think you know till you get in. But I think like taking this horse, getting into it. If I'm trying to work on that spin, or I'm trying to snap it up, it's all kind of the same thing. I'm going to go back and check that foundation like I was saying. This horse, I'll do it in 2 hands to begin with, but I'm just going to be real simple, you know, real basic, and just I'll take my inside leg off and go to the right, move that horse's shoulders over, and release. That horse should have kept turning, okay? So right away, because she doesn't know she's a reining horse, right? What's a spin? A spin is just, it's the horse's shoulders moving, right? It's like, you know, they're going around indefinitely. That's what a spin is. If a horse's shoulders move properly, the hind end should stay in the same spot, and they go around and around. So, and actually right now, and this is something I go back and forth with this mare. As I start asking her for more speed, you know, I'll get this, and I'll show you in a second here again. I'll get this step number 1 on her where she just goes around and around, and then I start trying to tinker with her footwork a little because I'm trying to always, you know, get a little more out of her. Then she'll get a little confused, and I know that because I'll come back and check this first step again, and she's not doing it.
Which is pretty typical because she's young. She's just 3.
Correct. And I've been gone for 2 weeks, and she's just been getting exercise. Right. So, and I've jogged her around a little. I haven't loped. I haven't set everything up perfect, which I tend to do that when I practice. I mean, I'm going to warm her up enough so that she's not going to hurt herself. But I like to kind of do things in tougher environments, because if I have her where she can do the job or do what I'm asking straight out of the stall darn near, or with stuff going on, that's simulating more what a show type, you know, situation is going to be. So let me go show you again what I do here first. I'll use enough leg here to get her. See how she's kind of sucked back? She's kind of leaning on that neck rein, or she's not really getting off my leg. I'll use enough leg there until she moves off, and then I release. Now what she's doing she's making the wrong choice here. When I release, I want her to keep going around. She's not doing that, so all I'm going to do is just put that pressure back on her. Put that pressure back on her. Release when her feet are moving. Sit real neutral. She's at a little bit of a disadvantage because I'm talking here, so she thinks she's going to hear whoa. But I'm going to get this first. And I don't want to try to sit and help her. I'm going to sit right in the middle. Whoa, there, good. So that got better really fast. So did you see that was simple? All I did, I asked her to spin, right, or move her shoulders. She was all cockeyed because she wasn't moving off my leg. So I just kept a little pressure on until she did. Once she did, I released, sat still. It took about 3 or 4 times of her stopping and me putting pressure again before she figured out, oh, this is easy game. If I just keep my feet moving, that guy will stop pulling on me and stop putting his legs on me. That simple. Did you see how she dropped her head now? Was she turning pretty slow? Yeah, she was turning pretty slow. You know, not the slowest, but you know, it wasn't, you know, she definitely wasn't hooking around there fast. But I think 2 things. Either A, she just can't spin that fast, or B, what I think's going on, it's something new, or she's thinking, right? She's thinking a lot. So while she's thinking and she's processing stuff, she's not just reacting, which I think that's when the speed comes, when they quit thinking and they just do it. You know, I think it'd be like you if you're learning something new, you know, or you're driving somewhere, right, and you're going to a new place you don't know, you have the address. What happened to you? You always drive way slower there because you don't know where you're going. You know, you're trying to pay attention to every little step, and then driving home, it's a whole lot faster. And then every time you do it, you know, you quit getting lost. You know what I mean? So I'm going to ask that way again. This is what I would do first before I start working on speed. Do you understand where it is I want you to be? See right there? I want to be able to go around about 8 or 9 times. Morning. Round and around. There, so that would be the start right there, okay? Just getting that horse to go around and around. And then here's the thing, like, you know, we start talking about wanting to do speed or put speed on a spin. How many people would actually think to slow down to go faster? It's such a game of patience. You know, you got to back down. But, you know, I think if you really were honest with yourself, you go, well, it really makes sense. You know, you got to have the foundation solid. And you got to go back and check it because, again, we're dealing with a horse. It's not like he knows, you know, you're not speaking the same language. You know, we try to, you know, do things that would relate to a horse, but he might, you know, he might have a different plan. You know, he might forget. You got to remind him. Some horses remember, some don't. Once I had that horse to where they would go around and around at a drop of, like anybody could get on, and they could pull their hand over that way, use a little bit of leg, and that horse would go around and around freely. First, you'll probably see that that spin's going to get a little faster on its own, as it is. But then I would go outside of that spin. And it's going to be a lot like what we saw on the gray horse with the lazy horse. I'm going to give her a cue to speed up. When she doesn't, I'll use a little bit of leg. When she raises up out of frame, I'll go ahead and help. And it depends on what level your horse is at as far as how much of this you can do. But then when she gets out of frame, I'll help her get back into position here. What I don't want, or what I want to take away is when she hears that cluck, I want her to speed up, but I don't want her to feel like she's running, like a scared horse running away from a predator or something where they raise up and get out of frame. I want to teach her to just kind of get a little pep in your step, but stay in frame, because that's going to be the cue that I'm going to use when I get into that spin.
And are you kicking her with both feet then?
So I am right now. I'm using both legs. If she was to bow her body out, I would use more outside leg. I want the horse pretty straight right here.
And so do you cluck first then kick?
yes, absolutely. I want to cluck first because that's my cue. In a perfect world, I'm going to cluck and I'm not going to use my leg. She's just going to go because she's going to understand. If I use my leg first and then cluck, the leg is now the cue. You know, now it has nothing to do with the cluck. Yeah, it's just like when I see people running and stopping and they say whoa and they pull at the same time. It's like, well, why bother saying whoa? If you're going to pull, you know, that's why I said, you know, you got to have an order into what you're doing. Like you saw there, she went pretty darn good, I thought. When I clucked to her, she flew around there. And what she's done in the past, she's been, I told you, she's having a little hard time with having that snap and that spin. But then also, like when you rode her and you clucked to her, she was busy trying to go somewhere, but she was so worried, like she didn't know what to do, you know, because she's a sweet mare, that she just kind of got, I don't know where to go, but I'm supposed to do something. And so that showed me that we need to slow it back down, get her solid and just going around and around, and then teach her what a cluck means. You know, that means speed up, not lose your mind, and you're not going to get, you know, you're not going to get in a huge amount of trouble. I'm going to make you get a little pep in your step, but it's not like the end of the world. Now, some horses just naturally have a little more juice to them than others, and that's why a horse that's got a little more spice to them, you know, a little more pep in their step, they're going to be a little better at spinning. But then also, that same horse, you know, it comes with a whole nother set of issues. When you go to lope it off into a small slow on pattern 9, like the one I just did, that horse is going to be a little trickier, you know, about loping off into a small slow. Where this mare, I'll be able to drape the rein out to her, and she's going to be, you know, more than fine being quiet there. Does that make sense? Now, the last thing I would do, messing with that spin, what'll happen sometimes, which is a common problem, is a lot of horses get sprawled out. You know, that's just, I don't know why, it's just what happens. I think sometimes they get on their hocks too much, or they just get tired, or they're just not that good at it. They get those legs out here, and then things start slowing down, and then when the rider pulls back in the spin, I think if you slow-mode your video and watch, you'd see the horse comes like this, and they rock back, and then the legs go forward. So it actually gets worse. You're putting the horse, or the horse is taking a longer step, which is a slower step, and then the correction, a lot of times, I personally think it makes it worse.
So how would you fix that?
So what I would do is I'd be out of that spin. On a lazy horse, I want to try to really get my point across away from the maneuver. Sure.
Okay.
I want to get, I mean, I'm fine right there. But I want to try to get my point across to the horse away from the maneuver, away from the thing that I really want to do well. Because I want to try, in my mind, I'm trying to make the maneuver be the thing that they get the most relief or release from. Okay? So I would come out here, and I would lift my hands forward and up a little more. It just changes the action of the bridle, makes it kind of come straight up more. And when I get my hands forward, if I pull softly, I think it encourages the horse to give it the pull. Now, mind you, I'm not pulling very hard either. So, you know, you guys watching going, oh, he's pulling so hard. I'm not pulling very hard. But I come out here, lift, and I feel like when I watch in the spin, you lift forward more, that the horse the withers almost come forward, okay? You know, kind of stay with me here. They almost feel like they go forward, and if that happens, I feel like the legs come back, okay, to a certain degree. Now, mind you, we're not trying to like lift them off the ground. We're talking about, you know, maybe a quarter inch or an inch or something. You're just trying to help that horse stay in frame. So once I feel like they have this down to where when I lift, see how she just gives right away with no contact? I feel like now I can carry that cue into the spin. I can stack. In other words, like if you're watching my other videos, we kind of stack things. You know, step 1, 2, 3, and you're teaching them to multitask. But now I go in to that spin, and do I have the step 1 of going around and around? Yeah, pretty good. She sped up off a cluck pretty good. Now let's work on her footwork a little. I lift here. Okay, so then as soon as I lift, we drop back all the way down to that first step, I'd say. And I'd say that because when I lifted up on her, she stopped moving her feet. So when she does that, I'll apply that pressure until she moves, and I release. And start up again, lift. Release.
So you would lift first, and then if she stops spinning like she did, so you lift up, and then do you go to your leg?
I would, because I'm just constantly trying to think about that, you know, like stairs almost. You know, I'm trying to get to the top, but I may have to drop back down. I'm nervous. I may have to drop back down, like, you know, I overloaded the boat. You know, if we're playing Jenga, the whole thing fell down. We got to start over again. I say that because I had box 1 checked, where she goes around and around free. I asked her for a little speed. She gave me that. So now I'm thinking, all right, I'm close. Now, if she will let me kind of manipulate her footwork just a little and continue to turn, now I'm getting a broke horse, a broke spin. When I went to lift up, she was kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. I think she's thinking about me pulling on her, and she stopped moving her feet.
And did you lift her up because you didn't really like where her positioning was with her feet?
Actually, that time I thought her position was great. I was just doing it to show you.
Oh, okay.
And some stuff I think, you know, at some point she would need that too. Like if I was showing and I felt like she was getting out of frame, or I just accidentally did it, I'd like to know that I could lift. And she would go around and around one time because she's so solid in her job. She's like, I know that I'm supposed to keep spinning until he says stop. I don't know why the rider's pulling, or, you know, maybe we are working on framework, but she's so solid that she'll just go anyway. But what I felt there was when I picked up, she just got confused for a second. Well, a lot of times what'll happen is you'll get caught up in that, and you'll start like really taking it personal and getting after that horse for making that mistake when they were so close to being just right. And then when you go to really punish them for that, you take all that confidence away when it really wasn't that big a deal. And then now you got a whole nother issue. Now you got them worried about the spin. Now they don't want to stand still. All of those things are side effects from a horse being confused. All you saw me do was back it back down. Be willing to back down and say, all right, well, let's go back to that step 1 of just go around and around, okay? Now, with that being said, you asked if I use my leg. Well, if a horse doesn't move off the leg, you need to go work on that. You don't need to spin to teach your horse how to move off your leg. You know, if I have a horse, when I ask it to move, you know, let's say that horse, I ask it to start spinning like I told you, and the horse stops, and I use my leg, and nothing happens. Well, forget about a spin now. Now I think your horse is really not even ready to spin. Now you need to come out here and you need to work on yielding to leg pressure. You know what I mean? That's now you just have to take it back a whole nother step, which it can be frustrating. It can try your patience when you're like, well, I bought a broke horse, and you feel this little hole and you start troubleshooting. It's what I call it. You're almost like, you're like a mechanic. You're popping the hood, trying to figure out what can I do to make this horse understand better. And then you find out, well, the root of my problem is she just doesn't get off of my, or, you know, get off or respond to my leg as good as she could. Like right now, this is probably like a C response to moving off my leg. I'm having to push pretty hard. Granted, I've got a dull spur, but I'm having to push pretty hard to get her to move away. And am I concerned about it? No, because she's only 3 years old. So it's something that, you know, I've kind of have like multiple things that I'm working on as I'm getting her broke.
So how will you, if she's only getting off your leg, do you just keep doing that exercise?
I would. Now, I wouldn't do it until she just resented it. Mm-hmm. How's it going? Good. I wouldn't do it until she just completely hated it. Mm-hmm. I would, you know, I'd be like anything, almost like going to school where you work on a subject for a little bit and then you go do something different, you know, and every day you keep doing it and keep adding up a little more and more. Now, if she was really terrible at it, would I spend 3 or 4 days working on just that? Probably so. But I think she's trying to get it figured out. We just got to keep chipping away. So I'd probably spend, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, reminding her how to get off when I push. Because ultimately what I want, it's no different when you asked about that cluck cue. I don't want my cue to move off your leg is that I got to squeeze as hard as I can to get you to move. Even though she doesn't understand, I'm just going to push soft, because that's what my ideal cue would be. And then I will ratchet up the pressure as needed until she moves away. But every time I start with a whisper, move over soft.
Yeah, you don't just go to like, you don't go from like asking softly to wham.
No, you can't do that. If you do that, then you're going to have the horses like jumping out of their skin. Like that doesn't make any sense. That's like just, you know, your kid's doing something, they don't even know why they're in trouble, and you just start screaming and yelling at them. Well, pretty soon, you know, you come in the room, they're jumping like that right there. So yeah, you want to take things in an order. But back to that spin, you know, I think if you take your time, slow down, and check your foundation. You know, obviously be honest with yourself. Does your horse have the foot speed to have a great spin? And if it does, and even if it doesn't, it can always improve. Go back, check your basics. You know, if you haven't seen that video on how to teach your horse how to spin, I spend quite a bit of time on that. But make sure that horse really understands where it is that you want to go. And then after that, just work on your go forward cue when you're trying to step up. Add a little head frame in there, here and there. And then just keep in mind, chip away. I think the spin's something you want to watch, that you don't get them really exhausted too. When they get tired, you know, who wants to go out and try to work on wind sprints after you've ran a marathon? You know, I mean, you're gonna risk injury, and then they just don't want to do it. So, you know, use a little common sense as far as that goes.
And then I think we wanted to tell everybody too, we're always trying to figure out a way to help everybody, and because you have such limited time, you're not able to take a whole lot more than what you have already in training, and this is kind of why we came up with this. So for the people that are your subscribers to your videos, I want them to know that they can email you comments, questions, even if what we kind of came up with too is for them to send you a short video clip of their horse, and you can do a voiceover of basically kind of giving them a lesson, and they can refer back to it because it'll be a video that they have of you helping them with that situation.
Absolutely. Send that stuff, because I think most everybody knows the answers. I think they have the answers here. It's a matter of getting the order down, and I've done it for so long. I've tried stuff, and I don't have it right either, but I've done it so many times that I could probably help you out with the order and how to go about doing it.
Right. So if they sent a video to Mills Training at AOL, you can watch their video, do the voiceover, and send it back to them.
Don't forget to go to the YouTube channel here in the next day or two. I'll have all of my runs from the High Roller Reining Classic last week. I'm going to voice them over and talk about, you know, and hopefully that gives you an idea, or gives you a good perspective on showing and things that could help you down.
And what you'll be working on yourself.
Exactly.
So you're critiquing yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks
Till next
for watching.
time. All right.